Nomophobia. You reach into your pocket without thinking, the way you've done 1,000 times before, and for a second, your fingers touch nothing. Your stomach drops before your mind even catches up. You pat down every pocket, retrace your last 10 minutes, feel the room shrink slightly around you. Even the walk back to where you last remember having it feels urgent, like every second matters. This is called nomophobia, the fear of being without your phone. And it's become one of the quiet panics of modern life. Researchers first named it in a 2008 UK study, after noticing how many people described real anxiety at the thought of losing phone access. It isn't really about the device. It's about disconnection, about the sudden loss of a lifeline you didn't realize you were holding so tightly until it's gone. Atelophobia. You finish the project, read it over once more, and instead of relief, you feel a familiar tightening in your chest. Something is still wrong with it, you're sure, even if you can't say what. You pick it apart again, convinced that finding the flaw will finally let you stop, but the feeling never quite lifts. This is called Atelophobia, the fear of not being good enough, or of never reaching a standard that keeps moving further away. It often shows up not as laziness, but as its opposite, an inability to stop, because stopping would mean admitting the work, or the person, is finished and still imperfect. Psychologists link it closely to perfectionism, where the fear isn't failure exactly, but being seen as anything less than flawless, even by people who never asked for perfection in the first place. Athazagoraphobia. You're mid-conversation with someone you clearly know well, and their name simply isn't there. You smile and nod, buying time, hoping it surfaces before you have to ask outright. Underneath the small embarrassment is something heavier, a flicker of fear about what else you might be forgetting, or who might be forgetting you in return. This is called Athazagoraphobia, the fear of forgetting or being forgotten, and it runs in both directions. Some fear losing their own memories, especially watching a relative struggle with recall. Others fear something quieter, that they'll simply fade from someone else's life unnoticed, the way people slowly drift out of old group chats and old photographs, still tagged but rarely seen anymore. Allodoxaphobia. You're about to share your honest opinion in a meeting and your throat tightens before a single word comes out. You run through every possible reaction in your head, softening the sentence over and over until it barely resembles what you actually think. This is called Allodoxaphobia, the fear of other people's opinions, particularly how those opinions will judge your own. It isn't simple shyness. It's a specific dread of disagreement, of being exposed as wrong or foolish in front of people whose approval matters. For some, it becomes easier to stay quiet altogether, agreeing outwardly while holding a different view in private, just to avoid the discomfort of being weighed and found lacking by a room. Decidophobia. You stand in front of two nearly identical options, both fine, both reasonable, and somehow neither comes with any confidence attached. Minutes pass. You research far more than the decision requires, hoping more information will produce the certainty you're missing. This is called Decidophobia, the fear of making decisions, especially ones that feel permanent or hard to undo. It's less about the choice itself and more about the fear of being wrong afterward, of living with the future you picked instead of the ones you didn't. Some psychologists trace it to a deep discomfort with closing off possibilities, since choosing one path always means quietly grieving the others you'll never get to know. Autophobia. The apartment is finally empty, exactly the way you said you wanted it, and instead of peace, your chest tightens. You turn on the television just for the noise, not because you're actually watching it. Being truly alone, even for an evening, starts to feel less like rest and more like exposure. This is called autophobia, the fear of being alone, or more specifically, the fear of being unwanted or unimportant to anyone. It isn't the same as simply disliking solitude. It's a deeper worry that if no one is around, it might mean no one would notice or come looking at all, and that silence starts to sound like proof of something worse. Glossophobia. Your name gets called and the walk to the front of the room suddenly feels twice as long as it actually is. Your hands find something to hold, your voice comes out slightly higher than usual, and every face in the crowd seems to be watching just a little too closely. This is called glossophobia, the fear of public speaking, and it remains one of the most commonly reported fears worldwide, ahead of many people's stated fear of death itself. Researchers believe it comes from an old, deeply wired social instinct. Being watched by a group once meant being judged by it, and being judged could mean being cast out of it completely. Metathesiophobia. You get the news that something in your life is about to shift, a move, a new role, a relationship changing shape, and even if it's good news, your body responds like it's a threat. You start listing every reason to keep things exactly as they are. This is called metathesiophobia. The fear of change, even change you technically want. It rarely announces itself directly. Instead, it shows up as sudden reasons to delay, second guess, or quietly sabotage progress you were excited about only days earlier. The mind, it turns out, often prefers a familiar difficulty to an unfamiliar relief, even when the relief is real and close. Katagelasophobia. You trip slightly on a curb, barely noticeable, and yet your face burns as though the whole street saw. For the rest of the walk, you replay it, certain someone is laughing behind your back. This is called Katagelasophobia, the fear of being ridiculed or mocked, even in moments that were never really about you. It often stems from earlier experiences of genuine humiliation, ones the mind never fully filed away as finished. The nervous system starts treating ordinary embarrassment like a repeat performance of something painful, bracing for laughter that, most of the time, was never actually there. Ereuthophobia. Someone points out that you're blushing, and the observation alone makes it worse. Heat spreading further up your neck as every eye in the room seems to land on your face at once. You'd give almost anything to make it stop on command. And the harder you try, the more it deepens. This is called Ereuthophobia, the fear of blushing, which is really a fear of visibility, of your body revealing an emotion before you've decided to share it. It's a strange kind of exposure, because the fear itself often causes the very reaction it dreads, a loop that's difficult to break once it starts, no matter how calm you're trying to look. Anuptaphobia. You scroll past another wedding announcement, happy for them, and still something quietly tightens in your chest. You start doing the math on your own timeline again, comparing it to a schedule nobody actually assigned you. This is called Anuptaphobia, the fear of staying single, or of never finding a lasting partnership. It's rarely about wanting company for its own sake. More often, it's tied to a fear of falling behind an invisible social clock, one built from other people's milestones rather than your own. The fear speaks less about loneliness itself and more about the story it seems to be writing about you.